This is CBC Vancouver News.
I feel emotional upset.
Hundreds of people with Canadian ties managed to escape Gaza. We meet up with a family who's fled to Egypt, now headed to BC to be with loved ones. Plus,
they just called the SWAT team, and then everybody's so scared because they were running around all the house.
a Langley family is still in shock after a 12-hour police standoff in their barn ends in flames, and the man who rented part of their property presumed dead. Also,
so I'm doing seva. I'm applying ghee to the chapatis.
Diwali celebrations descend on South Asian communities around BC. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin in the Middle East, where more than 230 people with Canadian ties managed to get across the border from Gaza into Egypt today. It's the biggest group of Canadians yet after weeks of uncertainty, fear, and heartache for their families. The CBC's Tom Perry is there, meeting with one family who escaped and is now headed here to BC.
After 2 days sealed shut, the only escape route for foreigners and dual nationals out of Gaza finally restored. More than 200 Canadians passed through the Rafah crossing on this day alone. Canadian officials in Cairo have already processed 2 groups of evacuees, with many expressing relief at being out of Gaza, but also regret. 14-year-old Kamar Fayyad and her 11-year-old brother Amir will soon be headed to BC to be with their father, Mohammed. They're looking forward to reuniting with their dad, who they haven't seen in a decade. But life in Gaza was something special. Amir says it was beautiful, going to school, playing soccer with his friends. In charge of the children, their uncle, Maysara Fayyad. He accompanied his niece and nephew through the Rafah crossing and now has a Canadian visa to take them all the way to BC. But making this journey involved a difficult choice.
I feel emotional upset.
Fayyad's own family, his wife and 5 children, are still back in Gaza.
I'm really happy for the kids, so I will get them to their dad after 10 years. But just worried and feeling so bad about my family in Gaza. So my mind there and my heart there.
Fayyad says he'll return to his family as soon as he can. He's just not sure when that will be. Tonight, more buses arrived carrying more Canadians who have escaped from Gaza in far greater numbers than ever. With them will come more stories of difficult choices, people fleeing for their lives while leaving so much behind.
That's our Tom Perry reporting from Cairo tonight. Meanwhile, 2 major hospitals in Gaza City have closed to new patients. Officials say both are effectively blockaded amid the Israeli military campaign. The CBC's Briar Stewart continues our coverage from Jerusalem.
As war rages throughout the embattled neighborhoods of North Gaza, here are some of the most vulnerable. Born into violence that's already killed several thousand. Premature babies no longer in incubators because the hospital is out of fuel.
It's Briar Stewart from CBC. Hello, can you hear me?
We reached Dr. Mohammed Abul Salmiya, the director of Al-Shifa Hospital, the largest in Gaza. It's now reportedly out of electricity, water, and food. He says 3 babies have died in the past 2 days.
We wait for any help from military, Israeli military, for us, International Red Cross, from anyone. We need to evacuate this patient safely in other hospital in Gaza or out Gaza.
Israel said it would help evacuate the 37 babies in the neonatal unit, but that hasn't happened yet. And Israel says it isn't to blame.
There's no reason why we just can't take the patients out of there instead of letting Hamas use it as a command center for terrorism.
The Israeli Defense Forces released this video, which it says shows soldiers dropping off 300 liters of fuel outside the hospital. The director told us that fuel has not been received, and it isn't nearly enough anyway.
And it's dangerous for no one from the hospital can go and come bring this fuel from the street in this situation.
Israel suggested that Hamas was preventing the hospital from getting the fuel. Hamas denies that. Hundreds of thousands have managed to make their way out towards the south, where it's supposed to be safer, but there's no sanctuary here. Just outside of the city of Khan Yunis, 13 people were reportedly killed in an Israeli airstrike. While Israel is facing growing international pressure, including from the EU, to pause fighting amid the mounting death toll, a group of U.S. congressmen came to Tel Aviv to show strong support for a country viciously attacked last month.
So thank you.
The battle against terrorism.
Barbaric terrorism. It's even worse. We're with you. Thank you.
U.S. officials say they're in talks with Qatar, who is in communication with Hamas leaders. They say they're discussing the urgent need to evacuate the critically wounded, as well as to secure the release of the nearly 240 hostages still trapped in Gaza. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, here at home, demonstrators gathered across the province today to show support for Palestinians as the war drags on.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Justin Trudeau, you can't hide!
In the capital, speeches were heard in front of the BC legislature. Rallies also took place in Nanaimo, Prince George, and Vancouver. Demonstrators are calling for a ceasefire as the death toll rises in the Gaza Strip. They also want an end to the blockade on humanitarian aid. Today's protests coincide with roughly 40 others in cities across Canada and hundreds more right around the world. In other news today, there has been tragedy in the Backcountry. A Squamish man has been killed in an avalanche. It happened yesterday near the BC-Alberta border. 2 ice climbers had just finished the Lone Ranger route in Peter Lougheed Provincial Park. The man and woman were making their descent mid-afternoon when the avalanche came down on them. The 26-year-old woman managed to dig herself out. She called for help. Rescuers found her, but no sign of the 29-year-old man she was with. Well, today, his body was recovered from underneath the snow. A family of blueberry farmers in Langley is recounting what they call a terrifying standoff that took place on their farm Friday. As Janella Hamilton explains, the 12-hour police operation ended with 1 man presumed dead and multiple police cars torched.
The family that lives in this house about 100 yards behind this burned-down building says they're still reeling from shock. On Friday, police officers showed up at their door and told them to hide inside their home with the lights off.
They just called the SWAT team, and then everybody's so scared because they were running around all the house. My daughter was crying, and my grandparents parents don't know what to do.
My little sister's in the house, and like grandparents, they don't really know much. So like hearing that like they're stuck without anyone that actually knows like proper English, pretty scary for them.
It started with calls of a distraught person at the rural property near the U.S. border around 10 o'clock in the morning. When officers arrived, they heard gunshots and called for backup. Brar says a man who she believed to be in his late 60s had been renting a space inside the barn for the last decade.
He just barricaded himself in the barn, and then he don't allow anybody to come in. Everybody's, shouting at him like, oh, open the door, Don, open the door, Don.
After a 12-hour standoff, a fire erupted and flames engulfed the barn and torched the vehicles nearby, including 2 police cruisers and much of the family's farming equipment. The man inside is presumed dead, although his body has not yet been recovered.
We are scared. Like when I see everything is burned out like so quickly in just a few hours, like everything is gone now.
The Independent Investigations Office is now looking into the actions of the police. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Langley.
Well, BC Hydro says power has been restored to 99% of the nearly 250,000 customers left in the dark by Friday night's storm. Roughly 1,700 homes remain without power tonight, and that same storm forced Hello Ferries to cancel all of its sailings this weekend. The company operates 2 vessels. One of them was damaged in the storm, and the other was already having pre-planned maintenance work done. And passengers we spoke with, though, were understanding of the weather delays.
I guess it's to be expected, especially with the wind and the weather that we've had lately. So I think it's just one of the things that comes with that territory.
No, I think that's expected in any business. When you're first starting off, there's going to be a little bit of glitches that you got to fix and maintain, and I'm sure they'll do a good job on that.
You know, BC Ferries cancels an awful lot as well, so it happens, especially with weather that we have.
Hello Ferry says all guests booked on canceled sailings will receive a full refund, and the company is optimistic that tomorrow's sailings will go ahead as scheduled. The South Asian community is celebrating Diwali tonight. Known as the Festival of Light, thousands upon thousands are marking the holiday with delicious foods and colorful decorations. Our Saurabh Sandhu caught up with some of the celebrations in Surrey today.
Dressed in colorful traditional Indian clothing, visitors to the Brookside Gurdwara in Surrey came bright and early as they begin their day by offering prayers.
Most of the temples, the holy songs are sung.
Some stop to lighten diyas, an earthen lamp outside the building. Others volunteer their time in the community kitchen.
So I'm doing seva. I'm applying ghee to the chapatis.
The day is also celebrated as Bandi Chhod Divas by the Sikh community. The sixth Guru of Sikhs was released out of captivity on this day during the Mughal era in India.
Celebration is going on ever since.
Right next door, hundreds from local Hindu community pay their obeisance at Lakshmi Narayan Mandir. But be it a temple or Gurdwara, the devotees' prayer is the same.
Happiness, peace, and of course prosperity.
Happiness.
For many, it's a chance to catch up with the family and spend some quality time together.
It's a long weekend, it's a day off the next day, so you can enjoy a little bit more with your family. Just going back to my parents' place, we'll have a nice dinner, we'll do a little puja there.
Food is a big part of the celebrations, and sweets take center stage. This is jalebi, a crispy Indian sweet filled with sugary syrup inside. On the day of Diwali, it sells like hotcakes, and you can see the lineup behind me, pretty evident of that.
I don't know how to define this, but these are those heavenly rings of sugar that anyone will probably stand here in this winter morning to have this.
It's all the sweets are special, but this particular jalebi is very, very crisp, very, very thin. Heaven.
Streets and shopping malls are bustling as many make a last-minute dash to complete their Diwali shopping, just in time to spend the evening with their loved ones, glowing in lights of Diwali. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
And history was made today on a tennis court in Spain. For the first time in the tournament's 60-year history, Canada has won the Billie Jean King Cup. As Yvette Brend explains, it's not the only premier title for the competition, it's also the most lucrative.
Leylah Fernandez led Team Canada to victory, defeating her Italian opponent in straight sets, sending her teammates onto the court to celebrate.
Champions of Canada! It feels amazing, and I'm extremely proud that I was able to get to represent Canada at the biggest stage, and to do it in front of Billie Jean. It means the world to me, to us.
Canada's team gets a record $2.4 million in prize money.
This is such a special event to play as a team. I think we all get to know each other better and really feel patriotic. And so hopefully Canadians are watching at home and feel happy for us and happy for the entire country. And we can't wait to put on these jackets, baby. Woo!
And blue jackets for each player on the team from the tennis legend herself. And a breakout performance from Marina Stakusic, just 18 years old. A surprise pick for the singles match, she scored a big victory against a much higher-ranked player.
It's been such an honor being a part of this team, and I couldn't be more proud of everyone. Like, this has seriously been the best experience ever.
She's incredible, and the future is looking very, very bright for her.
Indeed, the future is looking very bright for all of Canadian tennis. The Canadian men's team will be defending their Davis Cup title later this month.
We are really doing well, and we are competitive in every aspect of the game.
today we made history, and just hoping that this inspires a lot of young girls at home. Canada wasn't a tennis nation a couple of years ago, and now it definitely is. Yes, go out there and play tennis.
So good. She says this dream come true is only the first of many yet to come. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
Up next, one of Canada's most successful fashion moguls, Peter Nygard, has now been convicted of 4 charges of sexual assault. That story after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A jury has found former fashion mogul Peter Nygard guilty of sexually assaulting 4 women. He was acquitted on a 5th count and a charge of forcible confinement. As the CBC's Jamie Strachan reports, the verdict is the first conviction after years of allegations against the now 82-year-old.
For years, allegations of sexual assault have swirled around Peter Nygard. Now he's convicted.
This is a battle won in a much bigger war.
Therapist Shannon Moroney has worked with dozens of women who've made allegations against Nygard, including 4 involved in this case. She shared reaction from one.
The verdict is not only for her, the guilty verdict, or for anyone else, but it is shared across all survivors, all women and girls, We did this for everyone, not only for ourselves.
Nygard was found guilty on 4 of 5 counts of sexual assault. Many of the allegations in this case stretch back decades and were only recently reported to police. Many of the women told similar stories of meeting Nygard by chance at a party or on a plane before they were assaulted in a private bedroom suite inside his Toronto headquarters. They didn't report it because they feared Nygard would ruin their career. The Crown painted Nygard as a predator who used his power and wealth to lure and abuse women.
This is a crime that typically happens in private and profoundly impacts human dignity. To stand up and recount those indignities in a public forum such as a courtroom is never easy and takes great courage.
Nygard's son Kai says he raised suspicions about his father's behavior years ago and was in the courtroom when the verdict was read.
I loved my father. It hurts me to see all of these things. I knew a different man, but when you get the reveal that there is another person, there's another personality within there, there's something evil in there, there's something perverse, there's something sick.
Nygard, who testified in his own defense, didn't appear to react to the verdict. His lawyer says he's considering whether to appeal.
As you've all seen, Mr. Nygard is frail, has numerous health challenges.
Nygard left court Sunday hunched in the back of a police van, a black parka obscuring most of his face, a shadow of the man who for years was one of the most powerful men in global fashion. A long legal road ahead still for Peter Nygard, facing criminal charges in Quebec, Manitoba, and New York State. Beyond the criminal cases, also facing a civil suit in the United States involving dozens of alleged victims. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Overseas, Iceland is preparing for a volcanic eruption tonight. Authorities there warn it's not a matter of if, but rather when. A small town has been evacuated and a state of emergency is in effect. The CBC's Philip Lishanek shows us the anxious wait.
Depends on how. The warnings couldn't be any clearer for residents of Grindavik. Thousands of tremors have hit the town in the past few weeks. Now the danger of a catastrophic eruption is apparently imminent. On Saturday, Icelandic authorities began going house to house, making sure the roughly 4,000 residents have moved to safety. Many gathered at a shopping mall near the capital, Reykjavik. This man says they came to look each other in the eyes and hug each other and even cry. That has been precious. The fishing town is about 40 kilometers from the capital, close to a volcano that's laid dormant for 800 years before erupting in 2021. It's not just close to the town, but to an international airport that brings tourists to the island nation. The Icelandic Meteorological Office says seismic activity in the area has increased significantly, indicating that this volcano is about to erupt. The town is also in the direct path of an underground lava corridor running to the ocean. The lava pressure so powerful, an eruption could obliterate it.
What we are seeing now really is an unprecedented event. We are really talking about velocities for this process and volumes or inflow rates that are much higher than what we have been seeing.
And there are signs that lava is about to punch through to the surface.
The magma is now on a very shallow depth, so we're expecting an eruption within a couple of hours, shortest, but at least within a couple of days.
The shelter worker says, like many, he's preparing for the worst, that his home and everything he owns will be gone. But he adds, life always goes on. Philip Lishanek, CBC News, Toronto.
Here's a live shot of the Port of Vancouver. Well, a blustery weekend is about to make way for a sunny start to the work week. I'll tell you about your 5-day forecast next.
I'm Belle, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On December 7th, join CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett at the Alumni UBC webinar, Finding Joy in Climate Action. Experts will discuss what climate actions we can take that could also impact our well-being. And enjoy the seasonal celebration of quiet reflection and jubilant hope with Christmas with Corleone on December 15th, 16th, and 18th. Tickets at corleone.org.
Let's take a look at that long weekend forecast and looking at the conditions tonight. It'll be fairly mild across much of the lower mainland. That storm we saw whip through the south coast has really subsided. Some wind and some rain still tonight, but that will taper off gradually to tomorrow. And you can see through many of the regions we're hovering right around that freezing mark. So any precipitation coming down might be some freezing rain, perhaps some snow. So do be careful if you are out on the roads tonight into tomorrow. Here's how it looks for tomorrow. You can see another system kind of sweeping across BC from the northwest to the southeast. And that's going to bring a lot of snow to places of the interior, but you can see for tomorrow at least our temperatures are still well above seasonal for many parts. Kamloops 12 degrees, Kelowna in the double digits as well. Keep in mind average for this time of year it's 4 or 5 degrees, so still quite warm, and that rain is a little bit misleading. It's going to be mainly a chance of showers off and on, but some breaks of blue sky and some sun as well, so it's not a total washout, but we will see that rain continue through Monday through many parts, including Metro Vancouver. We will dry out largely tomorrow. We'll see some sun. Those clouds might stick around, but then midweek is when the rain is set to return. Just a chance of showers at this point, but do expect that rain to come back. That is your late news for this Sunday, November 12th. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app. Always find us online as well at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for watching this long weekend. Good night.